This is how the Ukrainian military is deterring enemy aggression with the help of drones, but at the tactical level of the battlefield and at the strategic level with incredible operations to destroy military facilities and weapons production centers. Destroying armored vehicles is a much more difficult task, and it's not just because they are dynamic targets. In infantry, fighting vehicles are equipped with special mounted structures. This is a very cheap but extremely effective protective measure. The drone's own warhead is small, as a drone must maintain high speed and maneuverability. There's only one way to cause serious damage to an armored vehicle with such a weapon: hit a vulnerable spot precisely, and the mounted structures absorb the main force of the cumulative charge. An explosion occurs, but it is easily absorbed by the vehicle's armor. The synergy between drone reconnaissance and artillery is especially impressive when it's used to take out rare, high-value Russian systems. The Kosta radar is considered one of Moscow's more advanced military developments and reportedly costs over $60 million. Finding it was extremely difficult, requiring time, effort, and the skill of the most experienced drone crews. But once the target was finally located, a truly sharp elimination operation began. The first round landed close, and the second artillery shell hit dead on, an explosion that wiped out the system's complex electronics. The self-charge of a strike drone is small, but if it hits the ammunition precisely, even a powerful tank can be neutralized. This is exactly what happened here. The flames engulfed the tank from within, and soon a series of explosions and a chain reaction of its shells inside the hull began. Tongues of flame burst from the turret, while small but frequent explosions continued to methodically destroy all the technological components of the modern military machine. Nearby, a strike drone accurately attacked the target of another target. The precise hit on the ammunition did not just stop the tank, but caused a powerful explosion. This is not the end, but only the beginning. A huge column of fire rises from the turret. Sparks fly in all directions. A fireball forms, and the iron internals of the tank are simply torn apart and burned out by the incredible pressure of the blast and the fire. In both cases, this was not the first drone strike, but the decisive attack. Before this, Ukrainian drones had already managed to damage the tank's armor, so an accurate hit with a cumulative charge was able to inflict such devastating damage and destroy the tank. Ukrainian Bradley fighting vehicles, supplied by Western partners, assault the occupiers' positions. Heavy suppressive fire from cannons and machine guns keeps Russian soldiers pinned down, preventing them from returning fire and stopping the Ukrainian advance. But to move this effectively, groundwork was essential. Drone reconnaissance made it possible to pinpoint exactly where the enemy was dug in, even though they outnumbered the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians break through and begin dismounting infantry, but the Russians are too numerous and they have strike drones of their own. One of them flies straight at the Ukrainian troops, but fortunately, it hits only the armored hull. The assault team had already taken cover behind it and avoided the blast. Still, they immediately realize they've walked into an ambush. The enemy presence is overwhelming, and if they keep pushing forward in such a straightforward way, the breakthrough is bound to turn into a disaster. To preserve manpower, the assault troops are ordered to pull back, but climbing back into the Bradley is too dangerous, even with a proactive mesh over the hatch. If an enemy drone slips inside, the consequences would be catastrophic. So the team executes a unique withdrawal maneuver. They fall back in a coordinated, steady way, using the entire Bradley as a massive moving armored shield. Firing from behind its hull, Ukrainian soldiers keep the enemy at a distance while the armored vehicle provides solid protection. It was an improvised maneuver that saved many lives, but it worked because command was able to coordinate the gradual withdrawal using the very drone that captured this footage. From above, it tracked enemy movement and helped shut down any attempts by Russian troops to strike from exposed flanks. Soon, the assault team mounted back up into the Bradley, and managed to leave the danger zone. The Ukrainian recon drone watched from high altitude, capturing the dramatic smokescreen that confused the enemy and allowed Ukrainians to return to their lines without losses. However, truly experienced Ukrainian pilots have learned to cope with this problem as well. The first strike stopped the armored target. A second drone was sent to finish it off. The drone carefully aims at the right area. The reconnaissance drone records the hit. A rather small explosion scatters sparks in all directions, and fire starts. This is clearly not enough to destroy such a powerful target. However, this is just the beginning. The fact is that the pilot struck not just an area of the hull free of mounted protection, but with surgical precision hit an open hatch. The drone was armed with a special incendiary device. It seems that nothing special is happening, but in reality, the iron insides of the armored monster are burning out, and then the flames reach the ammunition. Its impressive detonation tears a target apart from the inside. The explosion scatters pieces of armor in all directions, and the spectacular fireball is visible from afar. After such a powerful explosion, there is simply nothing left to repair. As for the spotters for Ukrainian artillery, they are particularly effective when paired with American HIMARS. The first Ukrainian strike was a sighting shot, and the second hit already demolished the Russian multiple launch rocket system, MLRS. The detonation of the shells led to their activation. A chain reaction began, and the installation started firing chaotically like a monster in agony. Western allies supplied Ukraine with Excalibur shells and HIMARS missiles, but in very modest quantities. It was the drones for guidance that allowed these munitions to be used with genuine effectiveness, increasing accuracy by an order of magnitude. Ukraine's own artillery is mainly a legacy of the Soviet military machine. Of course, the Ukrainians modernized the weaponry, but Soviet cannons still weren't known for their accuracy. So, when the Russians began using tanks as artillery, Kiev realized this was a problem. A tank can fire its main cannon at a distance of several kilometers. The shell's exit velocity is faster than the speed of sound, so Ukrainian soldiers don't hear the shot, only the impact. The enemy tank can change positions relatively quickly, and it has very powerful armor. While at the beginning of the war, Russian tanks were being burned with handheld anti-tank rocket launchers. When the occupiers started acting more cautiously, avoiding the formation of equipment columns and hiding tank positions at a great distance in the rear, it seemed there was nothing that could be done about it. Despite all the advantages of combat drones, their primary role is still surveillance and reconnaissance. During last year's fighting, the Russian army spent months trying to seize and destroy Chasiv Yar, a city in eastern Ukraine. Constant strikes with guided bombs reduced almost every building and structure to rubble, inflicting horrific damage across entire blocks. The city was left in ruins, with smoke hanging over it non-stop and snow drifting through the air mixed with ash. Under cover of the debris, bad weather, and fog, an entire column of heavy vehicles attempted to drive into the city. The occupiers believed they could advance without much trouble, take positions, and dig in here. They were wrong. The fact that you're seeing this footage at all means Ukrainian drone observers spotted their approach in time, and a crushing counterattack began immediately. The first IFV goes up in flames. Just seconds later, another armored beast explodes, turning into a rolling ball of fire. It turned out Ukrainian forces had set an ambush. They were operating with small numbers, but thanks to high-altitude observation drones hovering overhead, they could coordinate their actions far more effectively. The Russians had the edge in heavy armor, but the Ukrainians worked as a tighter unit. They had mines, handheld anti-armor weapons, and, of course, strike drones that aimed straight for the target's ammunition. The occupiers realized that with their plans exposed, a column breakthrough would turn into a disaster and try to pull back. But judging by the chain of detonations, they didn't get away. Some APCs and IFVs were destroyed inside the city, while others were intercepted out in the open as they retreated. Knocking out heavy armor often took not one, but several accurate hits. Yet Ukrainian crews felt confident, operating on their own ground. One strike into the rear, right where the ammunition is stored, not only disabled one of the last vehicles, but tore it apart in a spectacular blast, flinging burning, red-hot fragments in every direction. Mines played a key role in making this counterstrike so effective. Ukrainians can seed an area with mines right before an enemy breakthrough, placing them exactly where vehicles are most likely to pass. A mine detonates from below and halts the target. Then drones finish it off from above, hitting from different angles. Once a vehicle is immobilized, operators can exploit open hatches, left exposed after the crew bails out, or even fly strike drone inside with a precise hit. That's how they can neutralize a target despite heavy armor, even when they can't reach the ammo stowage. This is why it's worth remembering, a drone is just a tool. What matters most is pilot skill and the ability to use drones not in isolation, but as force multipliers for infantry, artillery, armor, and reconnaissance. Nevertheless, it might take several such strike drones to destroy an entire tank. However, it's worth it considering the ratio of cost, production time, and control complexity. This Russian tank was trying to break through to the Ukrainian positions, relying on both protective mounted structures and its own improved armor. A drone fouled and exploded next to it. This means the tank is also protected by electronic warfare systems that suppress the drone's signal. Is it really the perfect defense? Not against Ukrainian pilots. The next drone accelerates and overtakes the tank from behind, using only inertia. Hit! This is just the beginning. A series of explosions stop the tank. Paralyzed, it will become a perfect target for night bomber drones. But drones aren't just flying objects. Unmanned vehicles can also swim. That is why Ukraine created the world's first effective water drone. They were launched into mass production after several tests. Notably, such a drone was used for one of the strikes on the Crimean Bridge. This was already the second attack. The first was carried out using an ordinary truck packed with explosives. An unexpected strike, but not effective enough, which is why for the second attack, the Ukrainians sent several surface drones at once. They broke through the bridge's defense without much trouble, as this technology is a real breakthrough in military development. The surface drones destroyed several supports and thus caused the roadbed to collapse. The railway line survived, but due to the structural damage overall, the logistics of weapons across the bridge became too dangerous and stalled. After the destruction of the cruiser Moskva, the frigate Admiral Makarov became the flagship of the Russian fleet in the Black Sea. Well, that's what the surface drone struck. The video of the strike on this frigate looks spectacular. But the main thing is a serious internal damage that sent the ship for repairs for many months and took it out of action. The funniest part is that the Russian media blamed Great Britain for the attack on the frigate. They simply couldn't believe that Ukraine's surface drones were so effective. It turned out that inside these unmanned vehicles are ordinary jet ski engines. The simplicity of the technology helps reduce the cost of such drones. This in turn makes it possible to attack vessels whose cost reaches tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars with an entire swarm of drones. And even if all the drones are destroyed, damage to the target will be a victory, because the warship will be out of commission for many months and won't be able to launch missile attacks on Ukrainian cities. But Russia has a vast amount of armored equipment, enough to send 2 columns into the same breakthrough attempt at once. While Ukrainian forces were disrupting the first column, the second got a chance to push through. Fortunately for Ukraine, the terrain worked in their favor, details the occupying forces didn't know. A tank tries to ford a river, but gets bogged down in thick, cold mud on the shallow bank. An IFV and an MTLB stop and wait on the shoreline. The tank remains stuck, so its crew evacuates onto other vehicles in the column, and the entire armored group begins to pull back. That's lucky, but luck still has to be used properly. The reconnaissance drone keeps tracking the enemy's movement, and the command post understands this isn't over. The Russians will try to recover the tank, then reorganize and continue the breakthrough in the same sector, just a bit farther along where crossing the river is easier. So the first armored target is immediately engaged by several strike drones at once. The drone impacts didn't produce a dramatic fireball, but they damaged the Russian vehicles enough to stop and neutralize them. The rest of the armored targets halted as well. Then, using the reconnaissance drone's corrections, Ukrainian artillery blanketed the entire sector with dense, accurately adjusted fire, finishing off all the Russian vehicles. This mass breakthrough was stopped thanks to the synergy of reconnaissance drones, artillery, and the pinpoint strikes of attack UAVs. By the way, we've put together the most striking cases where drones help stop entire armored columns and large-scale assaults. Let us know in the comments if you'd like to see that, and don't forget to like this video. Meanwhile, strike drones are being sent to destroy a higher priority target, an armored logistics unit. The Russian equipment is not a serious strike force in itself, but it delivers ammunition for an entire group of invaders. Ukrainian reconnaissance drones flew into the enemy's rear, spotted such an important target, and have already stopped it. The next drone flies directly into the open compartment and detonates the entire ammunition load. A sharp and spectacular explosion tears the armor and sends pieces of the target's hull flying high. Can you imagine how many shells and mines this vehicle was carrying for the explosion to throw multi-ton pieces of metal so far? And this effect was achieved with just one accurate hit. But the main thing is a real effect for the entire sector. Without the ammunition that was destroyed by this explosion, the Russian troops will inevitably get bogged down and slow their advance, even despite their numerical superiority. That's why a strike on logistics is a higher priority than destroying an entire tank, which can be postponed until night. During one of the subsequent operations, the Ukrainians launched only 4 sea drones simultaneously. Although their engines are inexpensive, the software, complex hull design, and warhead raised the cost of the unmanned vehicles to $250,000 per unit. Given that even $1,000 for a single strike aerial drone is considered a fairly high price, this seems like a huge expense, doesn't it? But just look at the effectiveness of the sea drones during the attack on the missile boat Ivanovets. The first drone slipped through the Russian defense lines and delivered a powerful blow to the target's hull, precisely where the boat's missile ammunition was located. The second drone managed to evade fire and strike the stern of the vessel, but the decisive blow was delivered by the third drone, which the fourth unmanned vehicle managed to film. The third drone managed to break through exactly to the hole after the first strike and detonate the missiles. The impressive detonation tore apart the hull and all the equipment of the boat, which is now beyond repair. The fourth drone's task was just to assess the damage. Thanks to its cameras, we see the boat taking on water and sinking. The missile boat was destroyed, and its cost is estimated at $60 to $70 million. This means the Ukrainians inflicted at least 60-fold damage on the Russian war machine in economic terms. Drones can also be paired with tanks. A reconnaissance UAV spots a Russian MTLB sitting well back from the front line. At least that's what its crew believes. But a Ukrainian T-64 is hidden in cover nearby. It's an older model, yet in synergy with a drone, it becomes a different kind of weapon. The tank doesn't even have to leave concealment. It fires its main gun using the coordinates fed to it by the drone. The very first shot is accurate enough that the shell blast likely strikes the armored target. But that's not enough. Ranging continues, and the second round lands even closer. The third is close enough that, soon after, the drone records an internal fire. This is how drones let tanks function like artillery. Military operations are rarely made public, so analysts usually have to piece events together from open sources. Cross-checking what information is available and comparing the tactical and technical capabilities of the equipment each side uses to build the most plausible sequence of events. But the Russo-Ukrainian war is different. Much more material is accessible, yet it takes special effort to turn dozens or even hundreds of fragmented engagements into a coherent picture, and to identify the factors shaping modern military history as well as a broader political landscape. Another victory for the sea drones is a defeat of the vessel Ivan Kurs. Its task is to provide communication and command for the fleet, which makes it a critically important decision-making center. The ship was launched only in 2017, which clearly makes it very expensive. But for the Ukrainian drones, it is just another target. The first drone was destroyed by fire, but the second one struck and sent the Russian ship for long-term repairs. We also have other impressive footage directly from Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles that shows what the military confrontation of the future looks like. If this topic interests you, let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The unpredictability of the modern battlefield can create moments that are brutally tense and extremely dangerous. Here, two squads, one Russian and one Ukrainian, end up occupying the same building. The occupiers have a significant numerical advantage over the Ukrainian defenders. The two sides spot each other too late, and a firefight erupts inside the structure itself, shooting through walls and clashing in corridors. From outside, it's impossible to tell exactly where the enemy is, so only with guidance from a drone can a Ukrainian Bradley open a suppressive fire and force the Russians back with a burst from its machine gun without hitting their own troops. The Bradley then circles the building, firing smoke grenades to prevent the enemy from slipping out and launching a surprise attack. It turns out only a handful of Ukrainian fighters are left inside. They have to be evacuated. The enemy is several times larger. Fortunately, the rescue succeeds. The soldiers are pulled out, and the armored vehicle smashes through trees to carry them away from a trap that was about to snap shut. By the way, if you want to see impressive night operations from the modern battlefield through the most modern devices, write about it in the comments.